Hello everyone, welcome to Know Your Customer. My name is Ken Field-Griffith, CEO and co-founder of mSurvey. And today we invite Richard Owen, who's a seasoned customer-centric tech executive. He's also a board member of ours and also an investor. And Richard comes from a background of building tech companies and scaling tech companies across Asia, the US, and now with us here in Africa, his interest in customer-centric businesses on the continent. So welcome, and we're looking forward to talking to Richard today. I have a few questions for Richard, and it's going to be exciting. Yeah, your time with Dell was one of the most powerful tech companies in the 90s. So tell me more about that and your experience with that and your focus on making it a customer-centric company and also some of the challenges you've had.
Well, I think first of all, Dell was a company whose success in the 1990s was built off having an extremely original business model. Direct sales were pretty innovative, and Michael Dell, I think, was a genuine visionary who'd really transformed the whole PC industry. And what we learned really, I think, at the time was that the technology was an amazing enabler, but you really had to get to why was it that people wanted to do business online. After all, Dell had a pretty good telephone model. You could pick up the phone, you could call. But online offered something that customers couldn't get on a telephone. It offered them a degree of control and empowerment, because previously, buying a personal computer was quite a tricky problem. You had to go and see a dealer, you had to speak to people, and the internet really transformed that. And of course, we've seen subsequently similar things happen at companies like Amazon, which was ramping at the same time. And just about every form of electronic commerce has centered around the idea that customers like doing business this way. It's easier, it's more efficient. So I think Dell was one of the early companies to understand that. But I think today it's pretty common practice.
I like the fact that you look at how putting the customer first, right? And really focus on the customer's needs and making things seamless. So how have you seen that translate in your experiences throughout different industries?
In surprising ways. So if you'd have asked me in the late 1990s, I'd have said the idea that the customer experience is something that can be mapped, can be planned, can be designed, operationally put into effect in the company, and a source of big competitive differentiation. I said, well, of course, that's completely obvious. We all know that. Every business is doing that, right? And you fast forward 20 years and you realize that that's not as common as you might think. So I think on one level, we'd have to say we've been surprised how long it's taken for companies to really embrace the notion of customer experience.
Whatever one of the stories that you remember that you can say, wow, this had understanding the customer better, or the customer feedback had an impact on the business trajectory.
There was a cable company, it's called Virgin Media, and Virgin Media was created by a merger of two cable companies, neither of which were well liked by their customers at all, and neither of which was doing terribly well financially. Yes. And so you took these two businesses that weren't very successful and you slapped them together and expected this miracle to occur where this beautiful butterfly would emerge. And they brought in a new chief executive, a guy called Neil Burkett, to take on this monster. And I think that Neil had to establish a different frame of reference. He had to think differently about the business. And he decided that he was going to make the customer experience a touchstone for the business, the measurement of the customer experience based around NPS, a sort of North Star for the business, certainly one of the handful of things they were going to do. And within a few years, he had sold the business for something like a 10x multiple of valuation from when he inherited it. So this was an enormous value creator. Wow. And during that same time period, the company had seen a substantial improvement in their Net Promoter Score. They turned around a reputation in the market that I think was negative into a very solid reputation. And this was a very clear-cut case of business transformative improvement. Now, admittedly, you could argue that they came from a very bad place where the only way was up. Yeah. But lots of companies still don't get up from poor performance. And I think one of the things Neil instinctively understood was that in a churn-based business like telecommunications, the payback on getting any group of customers to reconsider their relationship with you as a vendor and to make a decision to stay instead of leave has a huge lifetime value effect.
In looking at NPS and Net Promoter Score, looking at that as a metric of understanding customer experience, you were the founder on the founding team of NPS, right? What is Net Promoter Score?
I think on one level, it's a measurement. And I think that a lot of people think of it literally. There's something called a Net Promoter Score that implies there's a number. By and large, over the years, the world's sort of divided up into the two groups. Companies that think of it as, well, it's a pretty simple way, we're just going to put some numbers together, report a score. And people who think of it as a transformative philosophy. And it wouldn't surprise you that the former group is more often than not disappointed, because CX transformation is not trivial. And I'd love to be able to sell people a quick fix because it's appealing. But I think by now we all know if someone comes along and says, I've got something, really quick, really easy, just add up this score, measure it, publish it, and the world will improve, we should be a little bit suspicious. And the results come through hard work and through really understanding customers through this lens.
As an investor and a board member at mSurvey, what are you seeing as far as the customer experience, and what's your lens for the future on the continent?
Well, I think this is a remarkably exciting time, not just for mSurvey, but I think for Africa, and obviously rather Kenya-centric right now. But I think if you look at the broad narrative of technology and customer development in Africa, I think this is I think we're going to recognize, looking back, that we're sort of in at the start, and that the continent's going to go through a transformation. And some of that's because of economic growth. Some of that's because of the impact of technology and the ability of technology to change people's lives for the better. Regardless of all of that, the most compelling thing about being here is the people. And as you rather generously described in my introduction, I've done business all over the world. There is an energy and enthusiasm and a positiveness to what's going on here. And regardless of what that does for the economy, which I think is wonderful, it makes it a fun place to be, an exciting place to be, right? And I think that that's what we're always looking for, right? Especially in a thriving tech economy, you're looking for that energy. So just a wonderful time, and I'm delighted to be out here and just very excited about the prospects for the business.
We're happy to have you, Richard. So thanks for joining us today. That was it for today on our session of Know Your Customer with Richard Owen, who is now actually CEO of Owen CX, another tech company that he's building. And we're happy to have him as an investor and a board member, and driving the future of Net Promoter Score on the continent, and really evolving what customer experience and customer-centric technology companies could be on the continent. And that's it for us, and thank you, and we are out.